I don't know how I've never seen a Game Ranks video before. I love this. These guys have 8 million subs. I've never seen this before. I feel like a fucking idiot.
Dishonored, 88%.
Damn.
Batman
Man, what the fuck?
City, 94. Mass Effect 2, 96%. What do these games have in common? It's not just great Metacritic scores. They're all legendary single-player games made by some of the best developers of their generation. Want to know what else they have in common? Redfall, 56%. Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, 60%.
Damn, I'm surprised it's that high.
59%. All the most recent games from their respective developers, all critical and commercial flops, and all live service games. So what happened? How could respected names like Arcane Austin, Rocksteady, and BioWare release games this reviled? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and in a word, it's live services. Instead of focusing on the single-player games they were so good at, these developers were led astray by the promise of guaranteed profit. But as we
Wasn't the campaign for Suicide Squad garbage too?
figured out in 2024, there are no guarantees in the games industry. Right now, it seems like all a developer can do is stick to what they're good at and hope for the best. But these guys didn't do that. Instead, they decided to follow a dangerous trend that's killing single-player games, and they're paying for it. And don't get us wrong. At Game Ranks, we are definitely frustrated and pissed off at the current state of the industry. But it's not like we celebrate gleefully once a once great studio's reputation ends up in the dumps.
I do, because it's another point on the graph that shows that consumer unfriendly practices are not profitable. It's another example of what happens whenever you go away from what your audience wants and you fail because of it. It is a good thing. Thank God it happened. What if the opposite had happened? Then we get more of this bullshit.
It sucks. I loved BioWare. And it feels like there has been a pretty fair amount of these types of videos where we're talking about what's wrong with the game. And yeah, it's easy rage bait, but I don't take joy in tearing stuff.
It's bad. It's bad. That's the problem. It's bad. Like, now, if it was good, people wouldn't be talking about it like this, but they're not. But it's not, so they are. Like, the game is bad. It's that simple. Like, if you put out a game like Skull and Bones that has less innovation than Black Flag that came out over 10 years ago, Assassin's Creed with shipboarding, like, you're making a piece of shit. You're making a piece of shit, and that's it. Like, there's no, but it's rage baiting. You don't want to know what's rage baiting? Playing a game that's worse than a game that came out 10 years ago. That's rage bait. $70 to eat a dick.
Down. We don't take joy wallowing in the filth.
I do.
Yes, it's sometimes funny to point and laugh, but we are losing great game creators, and I just wish
it's always the way it is. Like every year, and it's not like humans make this worse, right? But like there are thousands and probably millions of extinct species of animals that we will never know about because they went extinct 700 million years ago and we have no idea. That's it. Like, this is a natural occurrence. If you go back to the 90s, there are a lot of studios, like, remember Rare? They're not around that much anymore, are they? Because things fucking change. Sega's not making Genesis anymore. They're not making console anymore.
Have to be that way. There's a specter haunting the games industry, a specter called the live service. It's infected the minds of every corporate suit and bean counter, and can you really blame them? They've seen runaway success with games like Fortnite, which is still absurdly popular and makes money hand over fist, and the guys at the top...
You want to know why Fortnite's popular? It's because it's good. It's good. That's the reason why. You show me a game that makes money, I'll show you a good game.
Companies, they all want a slice of that pie. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. They see the other guy's number go up, so they want their number to go up.
Yeah, or they get fired.
The problem is, all these guys assumed that the pie was infinite, that you'd be able to cut off as many slices as you wanted forever, and it wasn't. There are 8 slices of the industry profits pie.
Well, I feel like this is 8 slices of subscriptions, right? You got Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, you got a WoW subscription, Crunchyroll, let's see, Disney Plus, and you got Game Pass. Like, bro, there ain't no more room. There's no more room for another motherfucking battle pass. There's too much. The pie already is gone.
Fortnite, GTA Online, Genshin Impact,
Yeah.
and Fortnite is another one. Also Fortnite 2 also. I'm going to mention Fortnite one more time to even that out to six pieces of the pie. Everybody else trying to get those 2 pieces. Let's just call them the scraps for now. All these guys didn't account for how that was going to shake out, though. They just saw the big...
I think that the problem is that the issue is that a lot of these companies are making decisions that sound good inside of a vacuum and in an abstract, but they don't realize that they exist inside of an economy where people have so many competing devices and competing types of media for their attention. And all of those medias also have their own payment structure that you have to make a decision dynamically on what to support and what not to support. That's where the real issue comes from. That's the real problem.
Sales of money going to Epic and Rockstar.
Because if it was only one game company doing this, then it would be fine. But the reality is that that's why that everybody's doing it. It sounds good if you don't think about it.
And Blizzard, and they're like, I like money. Hey, people who are doing something that works, stop and try to do what those guys are doing, even though you don't know how to do it. I mean, at the
and
end
also,
of the-
I think, again, like, I'm going to go back to the game quality. People are buying the the Helldivers Battle Pass. They bought that. Everybody bought that. People love that. You know why? Because the game was good. That's it. Oh, well, we're not getting people to play our game. Well, then make a good game. Oh, well, I mean, it's like weight loss. Well, I mean, look, I just can't seem to lose weight. Well, what are you doing? You eating Cheetos all day? Whoa. Yeah? Why don't you go out and exercise? Well, I mean, look. We gotta think of something. We gotta think about it. Yeah. There's always a reason.
Today, the purpose of a business is to generate a profit, after all, especially if you're a publicly traded company, and a lot of these companies are.
Yeah.
The dirty little secret of the games industry is that success is never guaranteed, though, and there's no simple formula for making a profit. There's just too many random factors that come into play, whether a game is successful or not.
It's true, but it's also not. There's a formula that makes a game more successful more often.
Screw that. Well, I'll set all the corporate executives who clearly don't understand, let alone love video games. In their minds, the real secret to success is to find somebody who's successful and follow them around. Which on an individual basis, like, it's good to learn from people, but when you're a business person, you're just ripping somebody else off, it doesn't quite work the same. It doesn't necessarily drop you gently into success land. And that's just
100% does. It 100% does. Like, so Fortnite did not. Fortnite originally was a PvE game. You know, want to know what the battle royale was? They said they looked at PUBG. They said, "Holy fuck!" They saw H1Z1 and they said, "God damn." You know what Genshin was like? Damn, this Breath of the Wild game is good. What if we just took the game and we put it in our game and we called it something different? We put a few extra characters in it and then have people pay money for it. No, always steal shit. That's the best way to do it. Amateurs imitate, professionals steal. That's the way it is. Every one of these fucking games is stolen. Absolutely. And the foundation of it is built off of something else.
A lot of companies did, or tried
Stealing's
to do.
easier?
EA, Warner Brothers, Activision, Bethesda, Square Enix. They might not have mandated it, but they all wanted their game developer studios to, you know, build some money printing presses. Oh, sorry, I mean...
everybody wants to make Fortnite, but nobody wants to make a game as good as Fortnite. They don't want it, like, because Fortnite is so dynamic. Like, everybody's like, well, why can't we just get the money that it's like people will say, like, streamers say this with, like, somebody like Kai, right? Like, they say, oh, man, I wish I had the viewers or something that, like, Kai does. Well, what are you doing? Well, today I logged on whenever I felt like it, and I played video games for 3 hours, and I talked to my friend in Discord. Damn, bro, and you're telling me people didn't tune in to watch that? Oh man. Well, hey, it's all about luck, and I guess you just got unlucky. Oh, bro. Oh. Yeah, you just weren't picked, man. Oh, jeez. Luck of the draw.
Endless multiplayer elements and lots of microtransactions, which I can't
Sad.
imagine that ever getting old. The important thing to keep in mind is that the games industry
Losers
wasn't
lose.
immediately reacting to Fortnite's success. Almost all of these flops were in development well before Fortnite became the biggest thing in town. Live service was a direction the industry was already going in. Everybody wanted that big hit.
Sword.
And when games like Fortnite and GTA Online started dominating the space and publishers started posting record profits, that really accelerated people's plans. To anyone in the know, it sounds insane for a company like Arcane Austin, most famous for their work on Prey, still underrated to this day, to do that. Like Bethesda going, hey, Arcane Austin.
Redfall didn't play well. They had shit clipping through walls. It was bad. If this was a single player game, it would be worse. You want to talk about like, oh, it's live service. It's not live service is the problem. It's a bad game. It's a bad game that doesn't work.
We own you, and what we want from you is live service games.
He was mentioning Prey, though. He was mentioning Prey as a way to build up the quality of Arcane Austin. But the reality is that Arcane Austin, it's not what have you done, it's what have you done lately. And lately, Arcane Austin shit the bed with Redfall. That's the way it is. And I guarantee you that if you had your money in your 401k invested into a game like Redfall and you had a chance to vote, do we cut them loose or keep them on the line? Every single person is going to be cutting them loose. It's not even a question. Arcane Austin is good at making single player games, not live service game. I believe this is his point. But why can't they? They can't even get the bugs out of the game. They can't get the bugs out of the game. These are bugs that could happen in a single player game too.
And you clearly make immersive sims and do it in a highly specific way that is both critically and commercially well received. And then Microsoft buys them, and Redfall just tanks hard because it's Redfall. And that's the first thing that Microsoft observes. I mean, this is a studio that really knew single-player games. People got jobs at Arcane Austin because they liked that kind of game, because Arcane Austin was famous for it. So everybody at Arcane Austin was really enthusiastic about that kind of game. And yet, in 2018, the same year Fortnite was really taking off, Arcane started work on Redfall, an online-only open-world cooperative shooter. It's easy to just point at ZeniMax or Bethesda and say they forced Arcane into making a bad game. And for the most part, I am going to say that that is most of the problem, particularly with this one. That being said, devs are perfect.
You spent 5 years come up with a piece of shit. At some point, you got to stop blaming other people. $5 years. Get the fuck out of here. Like, what are we talking about? Oh, Xbox made us release it early. Okay. Why is that a problem? Like, what? So, if you didn't know what the deadline was, like, what do you think the odds are that they didn't know what the deadline was? That it was just a big surprise.
Capable of making bad decisions on their own. The orders don't always come from the top. When
it's scope creep? Yeah, you know what scope creep is? A failure in management. I hate how a lot of these game studios and like the gaming community is so allergic to accountability. They knew what the fucking deadline was. They knew what they had to make. They knew what they needed to do. They signed up to do it. They didn't do it. So if you can't handle the scope creep and you can't figure it out, I don't want to fucking hear about it. Like, this is your fault. You set yourself up to fail. You set the game up to be this way. You, like, Phil's probably not sitting in there telling them you need to have this system and that system. You decided this. You went with this.
Wanted more microtransactions. Doom Eternal did it by shuffling all that stuff off to the multiplayer mode. The game still had a robust single-player component, though.
Yeah.
And really, regardless of whose fault it is, Arcane making Redfall proved to be a terrible idea.
It was.
Right from the start, the project lacked direction and enthusiasm for pretty much everybody involved. And according to reports, no one at Arcane wanted to make it. And you can just see that in the buggy, half-baked final product. Sources said the whole project was such a boondoggle that many in the company secretly hoped Microsoft would simply cancel the game after the acquisition. And as much as people...
What a joke. I'm about to go in. I'm so sick of this shit. This reminds me a lot of whenever streamers will do a sponsored stream and act like during it they're in detention. You're being paid to make a product. If you don't like the product you're making, then why don't you make it better and find a way to like it? Why is this Microsoft's fault because you don't like making the product this way? What the fuck are you doing? Or quit. Yeah, whose idea was it? Yeah, this is find a way. It's your fucking job. Figure it out. Like, you're not always going to have a situation where every single little thing is going to be exactly the way that you want it to be. Like, that's the facts. Like, I'll tell you this, right? There are a lot of situations that I have been in the past 2 years that I did not want to be in. But the most poisonous thing that you can possibly do is to act like it. It's so bad. It's a worse mindset to have. Like, it's...
People used to praise Microsoft's hands-on approach with their studios. They probably should have canceled that game. I think it probably would have been better for everybody because they would have stopped sinking money into it and Arcane Austin would still exist. I mean, not that it really matters anyway, because it's estimated that around 70% of the staff that worked on Prey left the studio by the time Redfall actually shipped. The project was so disheartening to the people who wanted to
ship of Theseus
at Arcane that they just quit rather than deal with it. Like, they're obviously talented people. It'll be harder for them to bounce back somewhere else, but it's not like they're no talent hacks. They will be able to find work. So why not leave? If you're going to be stuck working on something that just kills your will to wake up every day, why stay there? And, you know, because of this, Arcane Austin also struggled to fill empty positions because I don't know how you get people who are like really excited about working in live service games at Arcane Austin, the developer famous for immersive sims. Like, if you say to me, there's a position open at Arcane Austin, I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, they're making a live service game. Oh, well, I'm not going to apply for that. That's how my brain would work if I were them. And live service games are the problem, but they're not the full problem.
I'm not sure if I completely agree with that or not. I think it depends on what the game is, right? And it's like a lot of game studios make, like, a great game studio will go off and do something different, and it will be great. Like, for example, Capcom went and made Dragon's Dogma. From Software made Demon's Souls. That was a big deal. Dark Souls, big deal. Big departure. Armored Core 6, a return, but still a departure from what they had been doing for the better part of 10 years.
Possible for a live service game to be good. Helldivers 2 shows us that in spades.
Yeah.
The problem here is forcing single-player devs who are not interested or straight up don't know how to make live service games. That's the problem. That's the biggest, most glaring problem, I think, even more so than the idea that a live service game exists.
I see what his point is. I understand what he's trying to say, but I don't completely agree with it. Because Redfall did not function even as a game on a foundational level. So, like, you can make, like, there's two arguments, right? There's, like, a lack of quality in style and design, and then there's a lack of quality in functionality. A lack of quality and functionality is indefensible. It is low-quality garbage regardless. Now, style and design is subjective. Oh, I think this game is boring. Oh, I don't. Okay, well then some people are going to play it, some people aren't. But Redfall did not function.
No type
It's
of
6
game
years to
is
figure this out.
automatically
6 years.
good or bad. But it is automatically bad to try to get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't want to do something to try to do the thing, because that thing
I'm going to have to say, though, like, while I still don't think that I don't. This is going to sound confusing, right? But like this is a two wrong situation. Microsoft also fucked up. And I don't want to make it seem like this guy is totally wrong, because he's right. Microsoft should not have had them do this. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it. You're making them do it, and it's bad. Now, yes, it's their fault, but they failed, but you put them in the position to fail.
Gonna suck. Like, you'd run into this issue with genre changes anyway. Like, imagine taking the Battlefield team at DICE and saying, hey, make Baldur's Gate 4, please. It would probably be a disaster because, I mean, these are multiplayer shooter guys, not systematic RPG guys. The drive and the knowledge just isn't there. And let's even say that they're excited about it. That could be a project that easily beats them down because they got to learn everything over again. And what we've
Blizzard never made an FPS before Overwatch. Overwatch was crazy good. It was on release. Overwatch was so good.
Learned in the past few years is that making live service games is hard. Even developers who have successfully done it, like Bungie, they struggle to remain profitable. Destiny 2 is a game characterized by crisis. It's a game that always seems like it's on the verge of completely breaking down. There are times when things are great.
I feel like I
with
missed
the
the boat
Witch
on
Queen,
Destiny.
And then there's times when
I wish I had
things
played
are
it on
terrible
release.
and no one is happy with Destiny 2. Like with Lightfall. I mean, in general, Destiny 2's been a success, but you never know it from the community at times. The problem with live service game is they require a constant stream of updates to stay afloat. And that means they need a constant stream of labor. And that means you're never done with them. Ever. And it's a delicate balance. You have to be satisfying, but not quite satisfying enough to be done. Like, I will go ahead and say this. That's not automatically bad. Generally, it turns out bad, but I'll again point to Helldivers 2. They get it right. It's worth continuing to play it on an ongoing basis because it is just satisfying enough to not be satisfying, but be satisfying. I know that sounds ridiculous, but still.
I'll give you my example of that. Whenever I was playing because what he's saying is like, I see what he's trying to say, but it's so hard to explain. What he's saying is that you have to keep the game in a constant state of imbalance, but rotate the imbalance regularly to keep things fresh. And I remember in Nighthold, with playing my warrior in Nighthold, I remember I was doing Croesus. He's the big guy in the water in Nighthold on Mythic. And I got depression whenever I was on the top of the DPS meter. Because I realized that whenever the next patch comes out, I won't be able to play this class in this way anymore. Because I knew it would never get better than this. Straight up. I was like, bro, this is so fucking fun. This is so good. And by the way, didn't Blizzard offer to do an update to StarCraft Brood War, but the Koreans were like, no, do not fix it. Don't fix it. Don't fix it. Please do not fix it. Whatever you do, don't, just let it go. Let it go. We're going to figure it out. Yes, exactly. Thank God. Yeah. So keep that in mind. That's what he's trying to say. I think that's what he's trying to say.
That is an extremely difficult balancing act. A dance with many delicate steps, one in which a single mistake could send the dancer flying, landing right on their face. And that allegory took the extent of my dancing knowledge. You're welcome. Like, take Anthem. It's another example of a game where BioWare just didn't understand how to make a live service game. Flat out. It was a loot game where nobody was allowed to mention Destiny 2 during development. BioWare was so desperate to avoid comparisons to other games.
How's that? How's that anybody else's fault except for their own? That's stupid. That's fucking stupid. Like, that's so stupid. Like, I guarantee you, like, whenever, for example, let me think, World of Warcraft was being made, they're talking about EverQuest all the time. Like, whenever they were making Dark Souls, they were probably, whenever PoE was being made, they were talking about Diablo 3 all the time. What?
But instead of doing something unique, it just meant that the game fell into the same pitfalls that other developers had run into and learned to avoid years ago. Basic game design.
I bet whenever they're making Diablo 4, the new loot season, they're talking about Last Epoch all the time. They're saying, like, let's put this from Last Epoch in the game. Let's put that from Last Epoch into the game. Right? That's what they're doing. Yoshi P talks about WoW all the time. Yeah,
because,
exactly.
Quote, old style AAA multiplayer game sensibilities.
But you see, like, my point, though, right? Where it's like everybody wants to blame live service. Whenever the problem, whenever you actually get down to, like, the way that this was managed, the studio is fucking up. They said, oh, yeah, so we're going to go roller skating, but you could only use one leg, and you have to have a bowling ball in a backpack. And they're like, man, we keep falling over. Man, bro, we shouldn't have gone roller skating. I said, no, bitch, you should have used both legs. What are you doing? It sounds dumb. It is. That's the problem. It's a management problem. It is. It's a management problem. Absolutely. And it might not be a management problem, but it's their responsibility. Management, like, whenever you're in management, you're in leadership, there are, like, it's great because you get to take credit for successes. People are like, damn, you really did this. Like, well, you really didn't do this. But here's the difference. Whenever it doesn't go well, people say, damn, you really did this. Maybe you didn't actually. It's not really your fault, but it's still your responsibility. That's it.
Tend to fly in the face of the realities of live service games.
Yeah.
Anthem, The Avengers, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, all of these games are built like single-player games with a level of fidelity, which is fine for a single campaign with a beginning, middle, and end, but it's kind of a problem when the developers are expected to continue the story forever. Either these
you look at this shit right here. Like, I'm sorry, like, I might just bring up another point. This looks like garbage. Like, nobody told them it had to look like this. They did this themselves. You did this to yourself. You decided you wanted to eat a dick. Don't go and blame Microsoft. Don't blame somebody else. It's you. You wanted to be the dick eater. Nobody else's fault.
Forever. Either these games end up feeling hollow and incomplete from the start, with developers cutting content from the main game and slowly sprinkling it out in content updates, or the live service aspect just barely exists, with the game going months on end without updates. Either direction can kill a community. And another thing that a lot of these developers failed to take into account was the community aspect. For a live service game to thrive, it needs an active and engaged community.
It does.
According to whoever you talk to, whales are responsible for 60 to 70% of the revenue in every
my
game.
Understanding.
But without the community, without the people there, the whales have nothing to do. It's something.
He's right. The whales need plankton to eat. Yeah, you need to have the plankton, and there's more plankton than whales in the ocean.
That executives just flat out don't understand. They think, oh, well, it's like just cater to the whales. Give them exactly what they want and screw everyone else. It leads to decisions that can be very political or pandery, and a game never builds a community because no one
Lost Ark is doing this, by the way. Like, Lost Ark did this. Like, they are, in my opinion, the worst offender of this. From, like, games that I'm familiar with. Pandering to whales. Lost Ark should be the best ARPG out there. Lost Ark, in my opinion, Vaulton clears any fight in PoE and anything in Diablo 4. And it's not even close, by the way. It should be the premier ARPG MMO by a mile.
Anything to do with it, except for a very specific type of person who might be willing to give money based on the appeasement of their sensibilities. That's a highly specific example of the community problem that these developers have, but it goes out to be much more broad. Think about the other pie, the player, their time and their money. Finding a player who loves a game long enough to play it endlessly is one thing. Convincing them to play a few at once, That's tough. We all
Yeah,
have
this is the ecosystem I was talking about.
obligations in life. Jobs, school, family, hygiene, physical and mental health. Cheeses from various countries. There's a lot of different cheeses.
Good point.
I've probably had 9 of them. There is a lot to experience.
I've probably
in life,
had that many
and
too.
Some of it you have to do, some of it is optional, but it all takes time. You can't exactly mainline Destiny or World of Warcraft and Warframe and Fortnite.
They
and
need
play
to
the-
do that thing where they had in, that show Dragon Ball Z, the hyperbolic time chamber, where like Trunks and Gohan would like go in there and train a lot, and then it'd be like 3 hours, but it'd be like 2 minutes inside of it. Like they need to make one of those in real life. Because like I'm getting into that situation, right? Where it's like I'm like, oh fuck, like I don't have enough time to play this game all the time, and I also want to play this other game all the time. Like I need 50 hours a day, but I only have like 24.
Diablo's new season and be a productive member of society all at once. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm sure some of you are going to say that you
like
can,
I haven't played this.
but you can't. You can't.
You can't.
Don't
No.
try to do that. It will probably kill you.
You can't.
Like, we talk about crunch in game development, but what about on the consumer end? They're asking us to do crunch, except for they want us to pay them. The reality of life is that adding another live service to your play is a tough sell, especially if that game releases as a mess or doesn't have like a good content roadmap or, any of the
guys that made Once Human made a live service game that plays well and it works. And they probably had a fraction of the resources that the people that made Redfall or Anthem had. Where's the problem? The problem was with the developers and the leadership. The finals is great. It is. I watched Shroud play it a lot.
Any live service problems we've talked about.
Once Human
over the
looks
last
bad, that's
few years.
subjective.
Like in Redfall, you can
I
see
thought it was great.
a kind of
I loved
glimmer
it.
of the old Arcane in some of the world design. Or in Suicide Squad, there's hints of the Rocksteady we all know and love in certain set pieces. But with these games, their
This looks like
unique
garbage.
vision was
It's
sacrificed.
just like, I mean, am I crazy? Like, I look at this like, what the fuck is this? This looks terrible.
Sacrifice to chase a trend. When you try to please everyone, you can end up pleasing no one.
That's
in
a-
fact, it's much
That's
more.
a fucking fact. He's right about that. Absolutely. And I think that's the real problem. They make these games and they spend so much on the game that they have to hit a target audience that's so wide that they need to water down the game to where the original people that the game was made for don't want it anymore. That's what fucking happened. And WoW did this with Wrath of the Lich King.
Likely than pleasing everyone. And it didn't have to be this way. Again, there are good live service games.
There's a
Even
lot of
with
them.
solid single player components, like take
Yeah.
GTA Online. GTA 5 is still
Yep.
there. It's playable, and the modes are completely separate and don't interfere with each other. It's kind of a drag that Rockstar gave up on some pretty amazing sounding DLCs starring Trevor as a secret agent for the single player game, and instead dedicated all their time to GTA Online, but the core game is still there, and it's still excellent. The same seems like it's going to be true for GTA 6. It seems like they're following that mode. Even if the single player game turns out being a loss leader to get people in the door for GTA Online
Yeah, that's
too,
what it does.
or
Yeah,
whatever
that's
they want to
smart.
call
He's
it.
right.
The fact is, GTA 6 is going to be GTA 6. But all these devs had to go live service on their most recent games, and all to their ruin. Arcane Austin was closed. BioWare has been mostly
Losers
silent,
lose.
other than releasing a few concept art compilations doubling as trailers since 2019, and they lost a lot of their key figures. We don't know what's going to happen to Rocksteady after the failure of Suicide Squad, but that game was specifically
I
called
know what's going to happen.
out as a failure by Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's unlikely that the planned content for the game is going to all come out, and who knows where they're going to be in a year. Other studios have suffered too. Platinum's reputation was damaged after the abysmal Babylon's Fall. I just
I don't
assume
remember
that
this
there's
one.
some kind of contractual obligation with that travesty because it makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, Kamiya stopped working at Platinum, but that doesn't mean every single person with the sensibilities left. In fact, I'd wager there are a lot more people there that understand how to make games. What the hell got them involved in Babylon's Fall? Every time we bring that one up, I'm just beyond frustrated with it. But I'll say this, out of the primarily single-player studios that made a live service push, Naughty Dog is probably the one that got out unscathed because they did the sensible thing and just canned The Last of Us Factions 2. It still cost the studio years of wasted time that could have been better spent focusing on what they're good at, but at least they're not stuck supporting a game they have no ability to keep running for years on end. That's the real issue with live service games.
Yeah, you gotta know whenever it's not working. Like, absolutely.
Very risky propositions. Even when they're being made by developers who know exactly what they're doing, there's a good chance the game will fail, not find an audience.
I think a lot of companies in the pursuit of consistency and going for like a guarantee, the only thing that they guarantee is that they won't have it. Because they try so hard to do something that's live service and like consistent that it causes them to lose their edge and like the competitive appeal that they have.
Just burn up too much money. So what chance does a developer with no experience with these types of games have? Like, they're trying to get by on the goodwill from their previous games and their AAA developer status,
never gonna work.
But that's just not enough.
Yeah.
If these devs had just stuck to what they're good at, they'd probably be turning a profit. Would it be all the profit? No. But again, there is a specter haunting the games industry. And when you can't get all the profit, it's just not good enough for some publishers and studio heads. Ultimately, the mindless pursuit of profit...
I mean, like, let's be honest, too. Like, this game wasn't well received by players in any regard. Like, everybody thought this was bad. Like, everybody was negative about, like, for example, Anthem, Suicide Squad, the Avengers game. Everybody was. So it's not like they didn't make enough money and, like, this is a publisher problem. The audience and the customers rejected the product.
Over rational business planning is the real problem here. And you could ask anyone but a studio head or one of these business executives running a publisher, anyone else, ask any other person. They'll tell you maybe we should have a plan. But for them, there is no plan. The live service game is basically like oil in them dar hills. We don't have a plan. We're just going to set a bunch of people loose with pickaxes and hope somebody comes back with oil or gold or diamonds or something. Whatever. It's whatever's worth money.
Because they're going after it for money, and they're not going after it because they want to make a good game. And they don't have the expertise to understand what people want. Like, for example, Pal World. What's your creative vision? Well, I want to make a game that a lot of people like. All right, well, you did that. Yep, that's it. So, like, you can do it, but you have to understand what people like.
Bring it back! No, they should have a plan. And the plan should maybe involve using people's talents and skills that have been established to make things that people want. And again, I realize that it's easy to take a big old dump on live service games, and I will continue to do that. But it's not just
As I said, I am a live service enjoyer. I think live service games are great. I think the problem is bad development studios that don't know how to make a good product. That's it.
Games. The industry feels like it's
that's my opinion.
But the thing is, it's not true everywhere. Over in Japan, Capcom has enjoyed its 7th straight year of record profit.
Street Fighter 6 is live service.
And they've been putting out a solid mix of live service and single-player games. Nintendo doing the same thing by sticking to, what they know how to do. They're not throwing everything out the window because they see something shiny. That's exactly what all of these other publishers and developers are doing, though, when they're trying to make something that they just...
Because they have no creative vision. The only vision they have is of money. They're not... It's like streamers that are like, oh, well, I'm going to stream the new popular game. Well, whenever I do it, it's not successful. Yeah, because you're not doing it because you like the game. You have no real interest in the game. It's obvious. You're just playing this because it's the popular new thing to play. You guys ever seen a streamer try to do that? Yeah, the creator vision is let's make money. Exactly, yeah. I've made that mistake myself.
Don't know how to do. It's a risky business to make games. There's always going to be backfires, even when you're rationally planning things, and the result is killing or damaging the reputation of these great studios that some of the best single-player games ever have come out of. Looking back on this whole thing, these studios would have been better off just going to the casino and putting the budgets of these games on black. They couldn't turn a profit. A lot of this was just short-term thinking and trend chasing. I wish I could say the industry is finally starting to learn its lesson after the latest high-profile service game failure.
I think it is.
No. After admitting the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was an utter failure, what was Warner Brothers Discovery's takeaway from the whole thing? To double down on live service games.
They're right. They're right. They should try to keep trying to make a live service game. They should just have it be done by a studio that knows how to make a good game. That's all. Yeah, the problem is not, it's not that live service is not the problem. The problem is that the game's bad.
Of course, even though their most popular game, their most profitable game, probably
Street
the
Fighter,
biggest
Monster
success
Hunter World,
they've
very
had
successful.
in years
True.
was, Hogwarts Legacy, an entirely single-player game. They made a crap ton of money off of that. And after a live service... You
can't really replicate that. Hogwarts is just so popular, and then they got lucky with like all of the like culture war stuff associated with that. Like, Hogwarts Legacy had a lot of intangibles that can't be replicated, to be fair.
This failure, they're like, well, single-player games. Am I right? Make another live service game. If there's one thing you could count on in the games industry, it's that these big corporations will make dumb-as-hell decisions. That is the one bet you can count on. You don't need to put it on black. Put all your money on the big corporations making dumb-as-hell decisions. That's not random. It's gonna land there. If somebody gives you 30-1 odds on that, you take it because you are walking away with 30 times the money that you had prior. That's all I got for you today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.
I don't know how I've never seen a Game Ranks video before. I've never seen one. I love this. I disagree with a lot of the things he said in the video, but this is great. I've never seen one. What the fuck?
Dishonor.
Yeah, I'm gonna link you guys the video. These guys have 8 million fucking subs. I've never seen this before. I feel like a fucking idiot. Hogwarts Legacy was just the first open world Harry Potter game. Yeah, it was a really good Harry Potter game too. Like, that's another factor. Like, for example, like Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Star Wars Fallen Order were very successful because they were good games. That's the most important thing. Like, again and again and again. Like, I go back to the good game situation. They weren't good. I think they were. Yeah, like, I'm going to be totally honest. I genuinely think that they were good games. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the gameplay was good. Like, I think it was as good as, like, it was, Hogwarts Legacy was like, let's say Jedi Survivor was like an 8 to 8.5. Hogwarts Legacy was like a 9, right? So, like, it was a little bit better, but it definitely met the check. I'm not a Star Wars fan, but the game was all right. Yeah, they were best Star Wars games since Jedi Academy. Yeah, they were well received within the community. Exactly, yeah. And so I'm positive about it overall. Does it represent an interesting take on a Star Wars game? Sure, but I think that live service games, I think that the reason... So, like, it's kind of like this weird thing. It's like a chicken and an egg situation where it's like, are live service games really the problem? Or is the problem that a lot of studios that are looking to make money without any sort of, like, real creative vision make live service games? So it's like, because live service game is usually the way that they try to do it, that means that more live service games will have a negativity bias of low quality. So it's like there's a lot of factors with this, if you see kind of what I'm saying here. And I am, again, a big fan of live service. I think live service is great. I think there are a lot of single-player games that are also garbage. And I think the truth is that whether it's a single-player game or not, Redfall and the way that it played is indefensible. It's irrelevant. Like, it had bugs that these could be bugs in single-player games as well. It's the same thing as, I'm assuming, Suicide Squad. Like, just the way that it looks is awful. Like, the studio didn't tell them to make the game look that way. They chose that. And they chose that because they thought that they were going to make it like Fortnite. And the reason why is they have no creative vision. That's the problem. That is the core issue, and that's what the end product is.